So it finally stopped raining for a day, and I went to the record store. Let's see what we got. Yeah, so I know everybody's got a lot of different weather situations these days. People are getting snowed in places like Texas and stuff where they don't usually get snow. And anyway, we've had just rain here on the East Coast here in Virginia. It's been raining like every day for like a week. And yesterday morning it finally stopped. And so last night after work, wife had to go pick up my daughter, and I said, drop me off at the record store and swing back by on the way home and get me. And so I went ahead and got out and just wanted to do some flipping. Kind of one of those emotional things where it's like, I don't necessarily have to buy anything, but I just got to get the flipping done, got to get the flipping available. Anyway, so I went flipping last night. Saw some, decent things. This is one of the stores I go to periodically, and they have a ton of used stuff. They don't always have a lot of, the kind of, I rarely get there and find any great, like, 80s hard rock or metal or anything. But I'm flipping through, occasionally you might find something. They did have a Saxon album. I'm like, wow, it's rare that you ever see Saxon in a place like this. But alas, it was the one that I bought like 3 weeks ago, the reissue of. So, Strong Arm of the Law. I'm like, really? Of all the Saxon albums that I need, you had to have the one that I already got? Did I only recently got? Anyway. Yeah, so I was flipping. I picked up some things, and I was like, by the time the day was through, I kind of put most of it back. Because it was just filler stuff. And I'm trying to, be a little more quality instead of quantity. A little more selective on purchases. So I'm trying to stick to that. So I put some things back, but there was one thing I grabbed which was intriguing, and I knew nothing about it. And so, maybe you already know it. I don't. Heavy Metal Kids. The name intrigued me. I'm like, Heavy Metal Kids. Interesting. So then, I knew nothing about the band. Then I looked at the band, and I'm like, these guys, look like they look like a pretty good, typical hard rocking band. They got the look for an album that was released in 1974. And I'm like, 1974 Heavy Metal Kids. Again, I knew nothing about it. I did notice that it was on Atco, which I guess one of the most common labels, bands that I see on there is the Bee Gees, which they had this album, which I almost picked up just because I thought, well, that'd be kind of neat to have. I've heard of the best of the Bee Gees from the older age, so I almost picked that up. But I'm like, this is apparently one of the older, Atco just labels. So went ahead and grabbed it, brought it home, threw it on. Turns out they are a UK, what they're considered glam rock band. So they would, harken back to those days and of that age, the Slade and all those type of glam bands from the 70s, and they sound like that. They have that sound. They've got it's cool. It was very 70s sounding, and it's just a good rockin' sound. So yes, it's what Blind Buy that paid off in the end. It was pretty cool. They put out like another album after this, just called under the name The Kids, and then they put out another one under Heavy Metal Kids, and then they kind of disbanded, and then they got together again in the early 2000s and put out an album. So it's one of those on again off again bands that has done some stuff over the years, but this is their first, and it's it's pretty good stuff. I'm gonna give it some more spins. It's it was kind of like, hey, let's take a chance, and I feel like the chance paid off. Did pretty well. Then as I'm flipping through, I went ahead and went through all the new records because I do try to support local businesses, and so I thought, well, let me see if I can find something reasonably priced. And there were things I was going to pick up, like the new Dead Daisies. They had that for just not too much over $20, less than $25, I think. But I noticed that both copies they had, it's a double record set. Both copies had both seams split at the top. So whoever handled them in transit, it kind of shook them around, and so the seams on both of the sides of the gatefold on the top were split on both copies they had. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But I kept flipping because I thought, well, I'm not too worried about that, but maybe I'll look for something else. And lo and behold, I went ahead and picked up something else that I thought, well, this is a little, whatever. I don't know how to explain it. It is the reissue of the first Extreme album. Now, don't be too shocked, but I've never heard this album, never had this album, never really was into Extreme. This was during the time frame of my life when I wasn't listening to this kind of music. They kind of came and gone. knew about them, saw their albums, knew all about them, but never bought any of their stuff. Since then, I've acquired the albums that followed this. This is their first album, and so I have. One of my friends passed away, so I inherited his CDs, and I got one of their CDs, their second CD, I believe it was. And then Scott Waters sent me some stuff a while back, and I got one of their CDs that way. So I have that, but I've never heard or had the first album. So I thought, this is one of those reissues, similar to the Cinderella one that, came out a while ago. They also have one of these same company limited reissues of like Night Ranger's Dawn Patrol, their first album. But since I already have an OG, I didn't go for that. But I've never owned this. Thought, well, it's $1,000, it's limited. I'll go ahead and pick it up. And so I've spun it this morning, and it's good stuff. This is the kind of late '80s hard rocking, tail end of the hair metal years kind of stuff that I really enjoy. So yeah, I'm glad I got this. I will say, lyrically, this album is kind of at times remedial. It's like the songwriting, the music is great, and the presentation and the way it's played and presented is great, but at times the lyrics are kind of like remedial. I mean, don't want to go to school today. What's that other one? Eat your body. I don't even know. It's not even called that on here. Just some of the lyrics they're just kind of like cheesy 80s band lyrics that to the extreme in some places. Extreme cheesy lyrics. Anyway, I don't recall it being, listening to the follow-up albums, I don't recall it being quite that way. I'd have to go back and listen because, anyway, I just was struck by that. I'm like, really? This is kind of silly. But musically great. The band is great. The music that they play is great. It's just, and the songs are not bad. You just kind of like, okay, there's not much here lyrically. But anyway, thought it was great. Want to go ahead and grab that. So that's all right now. Anyway, it was nice to get out. It was nice to do some flipping. I was in there for like an hour. My wife gave me quite a bit of time. So I made it through a lot of stuff and picked up a lot of stuff. And, just kind of get that flipping done. So anyway, thanks for watching. And remember, if you don't know that I'm doing a contest in the previous video, go back and check that out. I'd love to see some entries on that. I've got a handful so far. But just a reminder, do the contest if you're able. And thanks a lot for watching. Rock on and rock hard.